It's the highest honour that can be given to a female member of the British royal family. But what is a Princess Royal, and why have there been so few of them? It's something I was asked quite a while ago in a comment under a video, and I've been wanting to do an episode on it for ages here on History Calling, so here we are. I'm going to answer those questions for you, and along the way I'm going to tell you about all the Princesses Royal in English and British history, explaining why some women could have held the title but never did, telling you about the only woman who may have lost it, why another was called it illegally, and why Princess Charlotte isn't the Princess Royal at the moment and might never be. Just before we get started, I wanted to let you know that you can now get my book, Find Your Irish Ancestors, online at Amazon using the link below. It's a directory of hundreds of websites which provide certificates, transcriptions, photographs and other information that can help you build out your Irish family tree and learn your family stories. The websites are graded on a simple star system to tell you which ones are the best, and the book will also tell you which ones are free, and a huge number are, and provide tips on how best to use them. It's organised into 17 chapters and covers all the major genealogical topics like births, marriages and deaths, burials and headstones, census returns, wills, emigration records, military history and education. Okay, back to the princesses. The answer to the question, what is a Princess Royal, is, on the face of it, actually very simple. She's the eldest legitimate daughter of an English, later British monarch. Her sovereign parent doesn't need to still be the king or queen, though, in order for her to continue to hold the title, as we'll see shortly. As to why there have been so few of them, that takes a little more explaining. For starters, the title didn't exist until the reign of Charles I, who came to the thrones of England and Scotland in 1625. They weren't in a political union until 1707, so there was no Britain before that. This means there was never any question of the likes of Elizabeth of York or her granddaughters, Mary and Elizabeth Tudor, being made the Princess Royal. It simply didn't exist during their lifetimes. It was in fact only due to the influence of Charles I's wife, Henrietta Maria, that it was invented at all. She was a French princess, and in France the eldest daughter of the monarch was known as Madame Royale. Henrietta Maria, though not an oldest daughter herself, so she'd never been Madame Royale, felt that there should be an equivalent honour for her own firstborn daughter, Princess Mary, born in 1631, and so the title of Princess Royal was inaugurated and bestowed on the girl in 1642. The title is somewhat similar to that of Prince of Wales in that it is gendered, it goes to the monarch's eldest child of that gender, only one person can hold it at once, and it is in the monarch's gift. In other words, a king or queen regnant's eldest daughter is not born the Princess Royal, just as their eldest son is not born the Prince of Wales. The sovereign parent has to give those titles to them. The big difference is that the title Prince of Wales is lost if and when that prince becomes king, in other words, upon the death of their sovereign parent. However, a Princess Royal's title is not tied to the life of the parent who bestowed it. Instead, it is tied to the life of the princess herself. It cannot be taken off her, or at least it would create an almighty legal and constitutional headache to try to do so, and it has never been attempted. And like the Prince of Wales title, it cannot be automatically inherited by anyone else, even if there is a clear candidate to whom it should go next. That is why Princess Anne retains the title at the moment, even though her mother Elizabeth II is dead, while her brother Charles ceased to be Prince of Wales upon Elizabeth's passing and instead became King Charles III. Even if Charles were to die, Anne would still hold on to the title. The next presumed holder is Princess Charlotte, granddaughter of King Charles, but it cannot go to her until her own father, William, is king and her great-aunt is dead. And even then, it would be at William's discretion. He won't be obliged to give the title to his daughter once it is vacant, though I'd be surprised if he didn't. It is therefore because of its relative youth as a title, and these rules, regulations and limitations, that there have so far only been 7 Princesses Royal. For more on the Prince of Wales title, by the way, see my video on the boys and men who held that title but never ascended to the throne, and you might also enjoy my episode on all the princesses of Wales. Like the Princesses Royal, there have been surprisingly few of them, despite the title being much older. Both videos are linked below for you. Charles I's daughter, Princess Mary, who was the Princess of Orange by marriage, is the only woman who we might say lost the title of Princess Royal. This is because her father was deposed and executed by Parliament in 1649, and his kingdom was declared a republic. She and the rest of her family didn't recognise this, of course. As far as they were concerned, her brother became Charles II as soon as their father was dead, so I doubt she would have said that she'd lost her title. As it happened, though, she was still alive when her brother was restored in the spring of 1660, and so when she died, tragically young that December, or January 1661 if you want to use the Gregorian calendar, she was once again the undisputed Princess Royal. With Mary's demise, the title became vacant. Charles II would have no legitimate children by his wife, Catherine of Braganza, and so the title languished for decades. He died in 1685 and was succeeded by his brother James II. Now, James did have 2 living daughters at this stage from his first marriage. The elder was another Mary, who was also Princess of Orange. She'd married her cousin William, who was the son of the Princess Mary I mentioned a minute ago. It's confusing, I know, but that's incest for you. And the younger was Princess Anne, who was the Princess of Denmark by her marriage. King James could have named Mary the Princess Royal, but he didn't, perhaps because she was living out of England at the time and her title of Princess of Orange was deemed enough. Mary was going to end up with an even better title, though. In late 1688, her father was deposed by her husband/cousin, and she and William were named William III and Mary II, while James, his second wife, and their baby son fled into exile in France. James, of course, still claimed to be the rightful king and didn't recognise William and Mary's reign, and so began the story of the Jacobites, which I also have a video on that I'll leave linked for you. James then went on to have another surviving daughter with his queen, Mary of Modena, in 1692. She was called Princess Louise. Now here's where things get sticky. As James still claimed to be king, he could theoretically have named his daughter Mary the Princess Royal even at this stage, though she wouldn't have recognised such a title. Mary II then died in December 1694, at which point her sister Anne became eligible to be the Princess Royal, as she was now the senior surviving daughter of the exiled king. James never named either daughter as such, though, but his followers in France, i.e. the Jacobites, took to calling his youngest daughter by that title, as you can see from this pamphlet published in the wake of Princess Louise's death in 1712. Now this wasn't legal, and that's why I'm saying that there have been 7 Princesses Royal and not 8, and it's why Louise ain't on the thumbnail of this video. Even had her father not been deposed, she was never his eldest or his sole surviving daughter during his lifetime, and in fact her older half-sister, who became Queen Anne in 1702, outlived Louise and only died herself in 1714. By the by, if you want to know what that pamphlet said about Louise, I'll be reading it out to my historical figure and time traveller patrons this week, so do consider joining my Patreon to access that. The link is below for you. The title continued to be in abeyance until well into the Hanoverian regime. With Anne's death, George I came to the throne in 1714, and his daughter, Sophia Dorothea, could have been made the Princess Royal. However, she already had a superior title to that one through her marriage, for she was the Queen of Prussia. It is likely for this reason, and this is just me making an educated guess, that she was never made the Princess Royal of Great Britain, for it would have been redundant. No one would have called her that or referred to her as such. George I died in 1727, and the throne passed to his son, George II. Now, at last, the title of Princess Royal was revived, 67 years since the one and only true holder of it so far had died. George II gave it to his eldest daughter by Caroline of Ansbach, Princess Anne, who had been born in 1709. She would hold it until her death in 1759. Now there's an interesting little quirk here. Anne had died, but her father was still alive, and so was his second daughter, Princess Amelia. Amelia could therefore have been created the new Princess Royal had George II wished it, but this never happened. This is a good example of what I meant when I said that the title cannot be inherited even when there is an obvious candidate to get it next. Instead, it remained vacant once more until the reign of George III. He came to the throne in 1760, but was unmarried at the time. He wed Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz in 1761, though, and in 1766 they welcomed their first daughter, named after her mother. This little Princess Charlotte was made the Princess Royal in 1789 when she was 22. She would eventually become the Queen of Württemberg and lived until 1828, but the title would not be assigned again until 1841. This is because there was no eldest daughter of the monarch during the intervening time period. When Charlotte the Princess Royal died, her brother George IV was on the throne. His only legitimate child, another Princess Charlotte, had already died, however, otherwise she would have been eligible to be made Princess Royal, and the following monarch, another brother, William IV, had no living legitimate children during his reign. Eventually, the crown went to George and William's niece, Queen Victoria, in 1837. She married her cousin, Albert of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, in February 1840, and their first child, born in November that same year, was a girl. She was named after the Queen, but known in the family as Vicky, and made the Princess Royal on the 19th of January 1841, at the age of just 3 months, which remains the youngest anyone has ever received the title to this day. Until the birth of her younger brother, Vicky was both the Princess Royal and the heiress presumptive to the crown, the only girl or woman to ever hold both distinctions at the same time. Princess Vicky would ultimately become the Empress of Germany and mother to Kaiser Bill of World War I infamy, and she lived until 1901, dying just a matter of months after her mother. The monarch of Great Britain was now her little brother, Edward VII, and he and his wife, Queen Alexandra, had 3 daughters, the eldest of whom was Princess Louise. She'd been born in 1867 and was married to the Duke of Fife by the time her father became king. Her title from her husband, the Duchess of Fife, was not superior to that of a Princess Royal, though, and in 1905, perhaps having wanted to wrest the title a little after his sister's death, Edward VII gave it to her. At the same time, her daughters were given the rare honour of being made princesses and were henceforth to be addressed as Her Highness, so a little lower than Her Royal Highness, despite being descended from the king through their mother. Princess Louise lived until 1931, at which point her nephew George V was on the throne. He had 1 daughter, another Princess Mary — there are a lot of Marys in this story, I know — who had been born in 1897. Once again, the title was allowed a brief rest between holders, which I take as a sign of respect to the recently deceased Princess Royal, but that's just supposition on my part. In the New Year's Honours List of 1932, however, it was announced that Princess Mary had been granted it, and it easily outranked the title she had through her marriage, which was the Countess of Harewood. Princess Mary would hold the title of Princess Royal until her death in 1965, and this meant that it was not available to be given to George VI's daughter and heiress presumptive, Princess Elizabeth, while her father was on the throne between 1936 and 1952. Although she married Prince Philip, actually just the Duke of Edinburgh at the time, in 1947 and had her own daughter, Princess Anne, in 1950, Anne could not be created the Princess Royal either until her great-aunt, Princess Mary, had died. Even then, there was a long wait, for Anne was not created the Princess Royal until 1987. I wish I could tell you what caused the delay here, as it's the longest gap there's ever been between the title becoming available for an adult who didn't already have a superior title to it and the grant actually being made. The formal announcement gave no hint as to why it was granted at that point, but I read an article in the Times newspaper from the 13th of June 1987 which said that it was given because, quote, The Queen has acted to thank her daughter for her tireless work for children in need. To give this a bit more context, the article went on to say that the princess, known for her headstrong ways and her uneasy relationship with the media, is now the darling of the press after visits to dangerous and disease-ridden spots for the Save the Children charity. That's certainly a good reason to give Anne a reward, but I think it only fair to point out that she's been a full-time working member of the royal family since she was 18 years old, so it's not as though she hadn't earned it long before 1987. I'm sure there was a reason for the delay, and possibly she wasn't that bothered about having it, but I don't actually know what the answer is. Once she did have it, it overtook her married name at the time, which was Mrs. Mark Phillips, and simplified her form of address somewhat, taking her from Her Royal Highness the Princess Anne Mrs. Mark Phillips to just Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal. Little side note, if she was using her married name today, she'd be Lady Lawrence, because her second husband is a knight. She will hold the title of Princess Royal until her death, and the next most likely holder is Princess Charlotte, as I think we can all agree it's extremely unlikely King Charles is going to produce a daughter at this late stage. I had to laugh at a couple of articles I read whilst researching this video though, which said that Charlotte is tipped to be the next Princess Royal, as though there's anyone else in the running at the moment and it's a competition. There's literally no one else living that it could be unless there was some absolute catastrophe, the likes of which don't bear thinking about, because only if the Prince of Wales and his children were all deceased, without the kids having grown up and had kids of their own, would Princess Lilibet ever be in the running for this. It's like saying Prince William is tipped to be the next king. Really? You don't say. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed that little overview of the title of Princess Royal. Please remember to give this video a thumbs up, as that lets YouTube know you approve and helps to get the video in front of other people who might like it. If you haven't already done so, please click the subscribe button, and if you turn on the notification bell, you'll get a little ding each time I release a video. For more from me, you can join my YouTube membership by clicking the join button underneath videos or on my channel homepage, then following the on-screen instructions. I'm also on Patreon and Instagram and have an Amazon storefront. If you sign up to my free newsletter on my website, historycallingofficial.com, you can get a complimentary guide giving you 5 quick and easy tips for recognising good history books versus bad, plus another one on how to interview your family members about your family history. All the links you'll need are below for you. Finally, a big thank you too to those of you who donate to the channel using the thanks button underneath videos for your very kind generosity. Let me know below if you think the title of Princess Royal should be automatically acquired by the eldest daughter of a monarch, which might mean more than one Princess Royal at once, or if you like the idea that it can only be acquired when a royal parent bestows it. If you like this video, do remember to check out my documentaries on all the princesses of Wales and the princes of Wales who never became king. Whatever you choose, please enjoy, and until next time, keep learning.